Thank you, Jim Ryan. Good morning. Welcome to a Tuesday after a Memorial Day and a Memorial Day weekend. Weather was picture perfect up until yesterday. Hope you had a great holiday weekend, J Dog. I know you were busy working it. But good morning. Good morning, New Hampshire. Good morning up into Maine. WTSN 1270 AM 98.1 FM. Mike Pomp just finishing up the Morning Information Center. Good morning up into York County. Good morning, Lakes Region. WEMJ, WASR, both AM and FM. WTPL 1077 FM, Manchester, Concord. We have you covered. Thousands of you streaming each morning. Hey, Google. Hey, Alexa. Play the Pulse of NH. Got a busy show for you out of the gate. Lot going on. Another poll out there, University of New Hampshire, after we had Michael Graham on last week, University of Mississippi poll, but UNH and other polls showing Joe Biden and Donald Trump in a dead heat. Where? Right here in the Granite State. No doubt explaining why Joe Biden's been coming back. Closing arguments today. I don't know how we got through the Memorial Day weekend without Donald Trump in the news in a Manhattan court, but closing arguments in that Manhattan, the so-called hush money case. J-Dog, Celtics doing it, was it 23rd time moving on to the finals of the NBA? Yeah, and then, of course, sad news as well. The Celtics are winning, but, of course, the reaction to the big man. I always thought he was just the big man. When he played for the Celtics, Bill Walton, what, a couple seasons, J-Dog? But did win a ring, right? Was it 86? Yeah. And just more of a character than I think a lot of people realize. But 71 battling cancer, but I guess he was quite a storyteller and quite a character, I guess, in person. How when yeah, I know we played for like Portland for a while, right? So a lot of teams. You may or may not know, but in his prime, how tall was he? He's what at the time he just was formidable in the center there, right? 11. Yeah, it just seemed like he was Bill Watt in his arms. He just but a really good guy. Sad loss for the 6'11", yeah. And of course, we used to have, think about Zdeno Chara, the former Boston Bruin J. He was 6'11", but on skates, not sneakers, right? All right, we have a lot going on this morning. We're going to be, I believe we're going to get a quick check-in with Paul Steinhauser. He reports nationally for Fox News and our Good Morning New Hampshire, the Pulse of an H 6-hour studios. Reminder, go to our Pulse of an H sites, our app. You'll see it everywhere. Our hot tub for heroes, and sign up a veteran in your life today to win a beautiful, beautiful state-of-the-art hot tub, someone who can benefit from the medicinal therapeutic effects of a hot tub of veterans. So go to our websites, and we're looking forward to giving that beautiful hot tub away to our friends Jamie and his team at Great Bay Spa and Sauna in Portsmouth coming up soon. Next week, of course, on the road a lot. Our first remote on a Friday, not this week, but next week. We got a short week this week with Memorial Day. Goodhue Marinas will be up in Meredith, I believe, and we're going to take the show on the road a lot this summer. Had fun last Friday going into Memorial Day at Geno's down in Portsmouth. And again, the weather really cooperated Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and that's the first time, J Dog, in a long time. I know you were working a lot. I do, and I appreciate that. So I'm not rubbing it in. But Friday, Saturday, Sunday was like the first time in a long time where I remember the weather was really nice and beautiful. It couldn't make it better. Yesterday, more on the chilly, drizzly, gray side, but a pretty good day. And hopefully, a lot of people took a moment to remember the ultimate sacrifice that some of the military and our veterans gave for all of us as we go get through the weekend. But here we go, Tuesday. So I guess officially now we turn the page. We're coming up on June. Believe it or not, J Dog, I can't believe that. Saturday. Here you go. And again, if you wonder why, if you have any reasons of wondering why Joe Biden has been coming up to New Hampshire more recently, including last week, it's not to buy real estate. It's it's not to buy real estate. Um, it's yeah, Steiny's going to call in at we'll make it 9:30. How's that? He just got tied up on something. So Steiny with Fox. It's because this race, and if you look at the most recent polling numbers, this race has this at a dead heat in New Hampshire. This is not good news for Joe Biden because New Hampshire should be solidly blue and in his camp. This shouldn't not even be close at this point. And we're seeing this nationally. So we'll find out what all this means. Coming up as well this morning, Doug Tengden. We're going to have some of our regulars who were not on yesterday with a economic update. And, in other parts of the world, they're looking at inflation pretty heavily. In Great Britain, they might even start to lower the interest rates. Probably not here for a while, but we'll get a check in with Doug and a world market advisor. We'll hear from Michael Graham this morning, Tom Raffio with some good news to end the show. We'll go over to Seacoast, top of the 10 o'clock, get a Seacoast check in from Alicia Pressens Anthopoulos. She does a lot, of course, of spoken and written word, Seacoast Online. As we get going also this morning, taking a look at real estate continues to be a discussion of so many people right now locally, and it ties into the inflationary stuff. It ties into interest rates being high. So many people just continuing to scratch their head at the lack of affordable housing, both for rent and buying. And a lot of people looking at the cost of borrowing, and they're the good news is if they're stuck in a 3% mortgage where they are, that's a good position. The bad news is if they want to move, they can't afford to move. And a lot of people who are getting more senior, who are downsizing, may be able to sell their home. And then how often do you hear this? But where are they going to move to? Everything is just so darn expensive. And I think that's going to sort of be the tone this summer. Inflationary pressures continuing to remain high, and we'll see where that goes. But Doug Tengden will be checking in with us in a little bit. Take a quick break. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, on a Tuesday morning. Not a bad looking day out there, J Doc. Things clearing off a little bit. Got some sun and clouds. It's going to get on the warmer side. We actually looked into this next week and coming up, and it looks pretty darn nice right through this week and into the weekend. Back on the Pulse of an H, Jack Heath, J Dog on the boards in a few. Interesting. Welcome back, by the way. Welcome to Tuesday. Interesting uh, educational show on Friday at Gino's Chowder and Sandwich Shop down on Mechanic Street in Portsmouth, kicking off the Memorial Day weekend. We were there live Friday morning. Great seafood chowders, great lobster. But interesting, the fishermen who came by to be on my show, including Captain Jerry Lehman. Uh, we had Dustin Colson, we had Ward Byrne, we had some of the lobstermen and folks, and the folks from New England. Fisherman.org is a pretty good website for you to check out. NE Fisherman, plural, fisherman.org, NE Fisherman.org. We had the folks, the great leader from the New England Young Fishermen's Alliance, where they're trying to teach young people to get into the trades of fishing. Younger people to make a living out there in the ocean. But I started to hear, and I talked about it on the show on Friday with the fishermen, their grave concern about this proposed floating wind farm, massive floating wind farms to go into the Gulf of Maine. And these are big floating windmills, basically, with all the stuff that is attached with windmills, and as close to places like Jeffrey's Ledge, right off New Hampshire. And the fishermen are concerned for three or four basic reasons, very, very good reason. One, it would decimate their ability to catch fish because of the way they have, lobster trawls between two buoys and nets and ropes and lines. They say they've been very good stewards trying to protect whales and other fish from their harvesting, and they obviously make a living on the ocean. So they're pretty much the best environmental guards of that. I mean, it's like a farmer respecting the land as they farm. But this is a part of the federal government that is putting out these bids, and no one's really, even in my humble opinion, checked the feasibility of this. But when you go to places like Greenpeace or different websites, supposedly on the environmental side, when you talk about the hazardous effects of these windmills on the species, not just the people who make a living out there. So you basically having to, good luck getting your local haddock, your local lobsters and fish. You probably be buying it from China or a different part of the world where they have to fly it in frozen. So there's your carbon footprint imprint. Isn't that ironic? But the funny thing is when you go to some of these websites, because there have been studies that when these large windmill companies decide where they're going to put their windmill, they do these mapping sonar things, which can really be bad for fish because they pound down to kind of get the bottom of the ocean, and these are very loud. These are very loud sonic type pulse beams that have been shown to be bad for whales and fish, because it just affects their bearings and their wits about them. Um, and then when you read these websites, because there's so much lobbying money behind windmills, they're throwing all this money around to tell everyone it's good and it's good for the environment, it's good for energy. They'll say, well, there are sonar effects whenever you do any fossil fuel project. So everything's right away. They bring up fossil fuel. Fossil fuel is the enemy. So any drilling, anything, because that has an impact on the ocean as well. Obviously, if you put a drilling well out there, but they're talking 2 million acres in the Gulf of Maine. These windmills is what they're proposing. I did some research on Friday's show. I think Lake Winnipesaukee, to give you some context of what a big area is, about 45,000 square acres, um, 2 million. And the Gulf of Maine is one of the richest, best habitats for fishing, regardless of any wind sources. But it's a wonderful, wonderful maritime, pristine heaven for all kinds of fish right up to the Canadian border. And the fishermen are quite concerned, and they are raising awareness. And the other thing that struck me is listening to the folks. And if you want to learn more, they've done the research for you. Go to nefisherman.org, nefisherman, plural.org, nefisherman.org. They claim that what happens on these windmills that no one's telling you about from the supposedly green energy side is the water goes in, the water comes out. It's very hot and it's chlorinated when it discharges. That's how they power with the wind, and that chlorinated hot discharge water can pretty much kill any fish swimming by. Certainly, it's not good. You wouldn't want to be swimming in a bunch of steaming hot chlorinated water on discharge, let alone a humpback whale. So there's a lot of money being thrown around, a lot of people, but the biggest thing that makes me wonder how bad this really could be for the environment and the livelihood of fishermen in New Hampshire and Maine and all over New England who fish in the Gulf of Maine as far south as Gloucester or Salem, Mass, or anywhere, is why hasn't anyone heard about this? Why hasn't anyone heard about this proposed project? Way back when they were proposing Seabrook, word got out, there were protests, there were hearings, there was all. Why hasn't anyone heard about this? Why is this so sleepy and quiet that they're looking to bid this ocean land, if you will, or ocean topography for these floating windmills out there that the fishermen say would destroy their livelihood and destroy your ability to get local harvest, but also hurt the species? Why is it so quiet? Why hasn't and when the Northern Pass, do you remember that? When, the Northern Pass was proposed from the Quebec Hydro down through northern New Hampshire and down through New Hampshire to connect in southern New England, on the hydro side. Remember how much awareness and how much uproar there was from people who didn't want the large power lines transmission through New Hampshire? There was all kinds of noise, and people were aware of it for years. Why hasn't there been more public awareness on this? On this proposed, and I really didn't get my full, education or eyes opened, until, Friday when I did my show at Gino's, and, I did get an indirect email from someone familiar on the, public utility side and the energy grid on the electricity side, and I'll be honest with you, I don't care how much energy this would allegedly create, at what cost. We can get green energy without destroying the Gulf of Maine. We can get green energy without destroying the Gulf of Maine. And natural gas, by the way, is not a bad thing for the environment, even though everyone jumps up and down. And by the way, I don't know if you know this, to make electricity, you need natural gas. So that's what we need. There are ways to do this, but destroying the Gulf of Maine and the livelihood of these fishermen, and politicians are always interesting, aren't they? We're coming off of Memorial Day where politicians may focus on veterans of the military or those who gave all, and then Veterans Day will come up. But whenever someone runs for office in New Hampshire, they'll go meet with the fishermen. We want the fishermen, we want their vote, we want their support, and there's not many of them left, but they're good, hardworking people, and the politicians will go kiss their ring. 20, 30 years at sea. Like I'm looking at Captain Jerry Lehman's card here. 28 years at sea, 28 years. And of course, he is part of that educational front known as NEFSA, NEFSA.org. Or you can look at New England fishermen.org, or even touch base with the great um, people at New England Young Fishermen's Alliance. But all the politicians, whenever they run, they'll go down to the docks, they'll go down to the pier, and they want the fishermen's vote. And here the fishermen are worried about losing their entire livelihoods for generations. They've been doing it in the Gulf of Maine, which includes right off New Hampshire, and they're proposing basically something that would destroy their livelihood. And everyone's quiet. The politicians in New England are quiet. No one's talking about this. So I think the easiest way to learn more, if you want to learn more, is the fishermen are probably the best source for this, and the people that the federal government folks should be talking to that want to do this. By the way, Gulf of Maine is one of only two places they're trying these new floating windmill concept with all the environmental risks to whales. And by the way, if you love whales, or tuna and big fish, why would you want something like this? Go to anyfisherman.org. It's probably the best resource, and you can see what they're saying about all this stuff. Anyfisherman.org. All right, when we come back, we're going to be hearing from some of our regulars. Doug Tengden will check in. We're going to hear later on at 10:30 or so from Michael Graham, a couple stories. Alicia Preston Xanthopoulos on the Seacoast, Seacoast Online. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of an H. Back in a few. All right, we are back. Nice looking day out there, actually. I guess it's going to get warmer and got a little chilly yesterday after a beautiful weekend, didn't it, J Dog? Anyway, hope you had a good holiday weekend and remembered for more than a moment or two Memorial Day and the meaning of it on the military side and those who gave all. Thank you, the Gold Star families. That's we have a lot of other chatter and noise, but I think that kind of matters. Paul Steinhauser reports nationally for Fox News and our show here, 6 Hour Studios on this Monday. And good morning, Paul. Yeah, and even the UNH stuff and some of the polling here, right here at home, because this is a state, Paul. We're not rich in electoral college votes, but this should really, to be candid, should be solid. New Hampshire should be solidly in the back for Joe Biden. Even though he wasn't on the ballot here, he won on a write-in. Our federal delegation is Democrat. New Hampshire is purple more blue than purple red. You think this should be solidly in the back for Joe Biden, but yet even here it suggests that it's a toss-up between Biden and Trump, even in New Hampshire. I agree. Yeah. Well, no, I agree. But if you look at historically, I think the last Republican president to win here was G.W. Bush in 2000. Democrats have done pretty well here on the presidential stuff. All right. Okay. I'm just trying to look at this a little bit. I'm just actually responding to one of your colleagues. As far as the trial and all this stuff, we're not that far away, Paul, from the conventions, are we? Yeah, it does. Coming up. Thank you, Paul. Paul Steinhauser reports nationally for Fox News and Good Morning Hampshire, the Pulse of an Age. Good morning up in Maine, New England, the country. Hey, Google, Hill Exaplay, the Pulse of an Age. Speaking of things that we don't know about. Yeah, I mentioned earlier the why it's crickets on this proposed floating windmill in the Gulf of Maine when we tend to appreciate our coast and our local seafood and our fishermen. So we'll come back to that. Maybe it has something to do with money. Maybe, you look at some of these energy projects and follow the money. But beyond that, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., it's just interesting. The national media doesn't want anyone to talk about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in this presidential election. Nothing to see here. Move on. And yet, third party candidates have pretty much decided who the next president is in elections. And just go back to Bill Clinton and George Bush Sr. and Ross Perot and Hillary Clinton and some of the Green Party candidates when Trump won in 2016. Third party candidates matter. Independent candidates matter, especially if they're on the ballot. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., it's amazing how he's portrayed crazy, nuts, worms in the brain, and, anti-vax are crazy. Yeah. Okay. Well, why? If he's so crazy, why did almost 15% of people in the most recent presidential preference poll in New Hampshire say they dig Robert F. Kennedy Jr.? Well, one reason is I'm not going into this. One thing about Trump that drives Washington crazy is no one owns him. He's Trump. No one owns him. You tell me if politicians are owned by special interests in Washington. You tell me. Joe Biden's been in there, what, a half century? You tell me if politicians are pretty much owned by special interests in Washington. Trump's a wild card. He scares Washington. But what about Robert F. Kennedy Jr.? I don't know who owns him, and he's out there and he's going to get on the ballot and there's no national coverage of it. And I'm not saying he can win this thing. That's not my point. He's not going to win, but he can certainly play a major spoiler role in who does. And what I can't figure out, I was talking to someone very learned in this stuff over the weekend. What I can't figure out is who does Kennedy cut more from? Who does he hurt more as he shows up on more ballots? Let's just, you know what? Let's keep it local. Let's keep it local. Let's just look at New Hampshire. If we're a swing state, you just heard Paul Steiners. That's why Biden's coming up. The polls showed New Hampshire like a dead heat between Trump and Biden and Trump. Let's look at this state. Let's presume, and I think he is, Kennedy gets on the ballot here. Let's just look at New Hampshire. Keep it local. All things local. So RFK Jr. is on the New Hampshire ballot next fall in November. Biden and Trump, the major choices, Democrat, Republican, but there's RFK Jr. I have a theory. I think the Trump base, I've said it a zillion times in the show, is like concrete. It's formed. People don't leave the Trump, it's like that goalpost in the end zone on the football field. It doesn't move. The wind may blow and all this, but the goalpost doesn't move. Trump's got his number. So Joe Biden doesn't seem to have as strong of a base of Democrat voters among Democrats, undeclared or independent, as Trump's number. So it's a little squishier. It's squishy. It's squishy. It's not solid. It's not solid. Okay. So Kennedy, even though he's an independent, he's historically a Democrat. Most people in New Hampshire view the Kennedys, JFK, Bobby, his father, and RFK Jr., as a Democrat. So if you're a dissatisfied independent voter in New Hampshire and you don't like either Biden or Trump, but you're leaning towards Biden, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is a legitimate bailout point to send a protest vote. I'm going to vote for Kennedy and feel good about my vote. Send a message here. I think more Democrats. I think, if you look at 15%, you're breaking it down. I think at least 10% come out of Joe Biden's vote for Kennedy. He's taking them, and maybe only 4 or 5% he's taking from sort of independents who are leaning towards Trump, but we'll go with Kennedy. So I think Kennedy is more of a liability to Biden. I think that's why I'm not saying that conspiracy theories drive my life these days, but I don't discount them. And I think that's why the national media doesn't cover RFK Jr., because they don't want him to do well. They don't want to give him that publicity. They don't want to elevate him and make him look real. So they discount him. They hope that he doesn't get any impact. But I got news for you. That ain't working. Because in these early polls show that Kennedy is getting about 14% in some of these swing states. You tell me. I think it cuts out of both, but maybe hurts Biden more. I may be wrong. All right, when we get going in a little bit, what is going on with this economy? Everything's so expensive. You go out, try and get something to eat. If you go to a restaurant, great hospitality industry. We have great workers and that people working in that industry, so you love to support it. You go out, you might get a couple cold beverages, couple dishes, something to eat. Well over $100, just almost impossible. Groceries still expensive. Everything is still expensive. Everything costs a lot of money. And here we go. But where is it going? Federal Reserve is not lowering interest rates for the foreseeable future. Now, we had one of our banking experts on the other day on the show, and he actually thinks that by the end of the year, we may see some rate cuts. And that would be good news for people looking to borrow money. So you can get something maybe, there's a big difference even if you walk in a 30-year mortgage at 6.5% versus 7.5%. So we'll update you on that. And of course, towards the end of the show, Tom Raffia with some good news, as we usually do on Monday. But of course, yesterday, the Memorial Day holiday and the holiday weekend. Celtics move on. They get rid of the Pacers. Unbelievable. Celtics have that mojo. And on the hockey side of things, I guess Dallas edged Edmonton. Rangers seem to have the upper hand so far in that Panthers series. Hey, Google. Hey, Alexa. Play the Pulse of an Age. Back in a few. Yeah, I was just welcome back. And by the way, go to our websites, the Pulse of an H, our app, our great app, and you'll see the Hot Tubs for Heroes contest. We're just basically nominate a veteran in your life who can benefit physically and maybe even emotionally from the therapeutics effects of these brand new, wonderful, wonderful state of the art hot tubs. Our friends at Great Bay Spa and Sauna, Jamie and the team in Portsmouth, nominated veteran today. Our Hot Tubs for Heroes. We're giving one away. Hot Tubs for Heroes, right on our site. It's not a rinky dink giveaway, as they say. Doug Tengden, World Market Advisors, worldmarketadvisors.com on a Tuesday going into this post Memorial Day. Doug, the weekends are still consumed sometimes with discussions, especially from younger professionals, just perplexed on how to make a move within this current real estate market. No, and what about by the end of the year? Yeah, interesting. What else is catching your eye on this Tuesday? Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. Same. That seems hard to kind of picture or fathom. Let's go back a little bit. We haven't talked much about this, Doug, because I know you stay clear of the political, but presidential elections markets, they have an interest because they're looking to see what could change on policy for the next 2 to 3 years. They look at Congress, who the next president is, good for business or not. Are markets baked in here? Because these polls, Doug, I know that's not your bailiwick, but we just had Paul Steinhauser on. The most recent polls, including UNH, the local polls, show a dead heat here, even in New Hampshire, between Trump and Biden. One would think that Biden should have an edge here. So Trump's leading most analysts. It doesn't matter. We're not talking Fox here. Most analysts are saying Trump is actually leading this thing in the key battleground states going into, a few months from now, in November, sort of swimming away from Joe Biden. That can change, but how would the markets react either way on whether Biden gets reelected or Trump again? Is there a favorite there on? I would think the markets might like a Trump win more, but you tell me. Interesting. What else? Anything else catching your eye this morning? Interesting. All right, Doug, enjoy your Tuesday. Hope you had a good Memorial Day weekend. The weather was beautiful up until yesterday. Back up the tux. Thank you. Thank you, Doug. It's interesting because the traditional choke points on a Memorial Day weekend, you would think the seacoast. And, overall, that's where I was all weekend. It was fairly quiet, believe it or not. It was fairly quiet on the coast. And I don't know why, because it was beautiful, a little windy and breezy on Friday if you were out there on the water. But Saturday and Sunday were just picture perfect and calm out there on Sunday. Beautiful out there in terms of any waves or the sea, any seas. So in terms of tides, I mean the seas were pretty calm. So beautiful day, and it was pretty quiet overall. I think what I was hearing is the lakes region was packed. People were just heading up to the lakes. North Country was busy. So I guess people are funny, and a lot of people on Memorial Day, believe it or not, stay at home. They kind of do the stay at home thing, or they'll travel regionally for the day to go visit family. But a lot of people are just, staying at home and chilling out, and working on the yard, enjoying the weather, and having people over. So, but overall, it was a really nice. The first time, I mean, I don't remember Memorial Day in recent years where the weather was that nice. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and people are starting these holiday weekends even earlier. It seems it used to be a Friday afternoon phenomenon. Now it's like Wednesday. J Dog, you were kind of consumed in all business stuff, right? Busy all weekend. Yeah. So what do you think? What's catching your eye in the sporting world now? What's got your interest as we go into kind of the end of the, well, not the end yet, but getting focus on near the end of the NBA and the NHL seasons. I know you're still looking at the baseball side of things. Anything catching your eye? Hmm. No pun intended. I know. I was watching the end. I can't remember his name. It's like not Toffoli, but something American. Great, like 5 set win. Great looking player, strong, and they were, really. The other thing I was going to mention to you, I don't know why, what day it was. I honestly can't remember. I think it was Saturday. I was just catching a workout down in my workout area, and I was just watching ESPN or one of the sports networks, and they switched over to the women's lacrosse championship. It was Northwestern Boston College. So I watched this game a little bit. I guess Northwestern was the heavy favorite. So I only watched the first, 20 minutes, I turn it off, and then I go out. And I saw Boston College won 14-13. What a battle. They were going at it. Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm kind of surprised because I love hockey, and explain this one to me because for decades soccer was going to be the top of football in America, all the soccer fields, and our kids grew up in that generation. Anything but football, and it hasn't really happened. Still, the prime markets, Europe or the world, but rugby and lacrosse are two sports. If you've ever seen a good rugby game, it's amazing, and it's nonstop. It's contact. They're incredible. And then in lacrosse, I'm just wondering why they don't seem to score better, in public. No offense to some of the major. It just seems like we're a NFL dominates. NHL is more niche. Like you go to the markets where, like, you look at Florida Panthers now. I heard a stat the other day since they won since they kind of made it to the finals last year and have become a dominant team in the NHL, their corporate sponsorships are up. They're sold out. They got a big rink down there in Sunrise, Florida. You know about the Bruins. The Rangers now are booming, but typically it's not as national as baseball, basketball, or football. So I'm just surprised sometimes that lacrosse professionally hasn't grown more in popularity or rugby. Yeah. Is he really that? Is it like a semi-pro thing down there or pro? Yeah. I mean, it is a little bit. It's got the feel of hockey a little bit. Yeah. I mean, and boy, well, they were showing on this special before the women's championship of how many. Give me a minute. I think it was NBA. How many pro athletes were lacrosse players in college that were that good and became like an NBA player, but lacrosse was their big sport. Yeah. Yep. Is it? Was it? Yeah. But rugby, I'll tell you, I watched rugby as a kid, and then you see, I thought rugby would be catching on because people, it's just got it's very physical. It's got to be one of the toughest sports, I'll tell you, because you're basically going without pads. You know, you're getting toppled on, you're getting crushed, you're getting tackled, you're bumping, you're bruising, but it's rugged rugby. Well, I thought I saw they had a game in Vegas recently. I go, oh, this could start. This could. No, nothing. I haven't heard anything. Hmm. Hey, what happened to Mike Tyson on his fight? Was that a heart thing? Is it some medical incident on a flight? They say he's okay. Yeah. All right. Hey, the Trump trial closing arguments in Manhattan. What are we going to do? What is CNN going to do without Trump on trial in New York? I'm seriously. What are they going to do for ratings? So, this is the hush money case. This is the one that got Stormy Daniels in there. No TVs, cameras in the courtroom, so it was just all covered from afar. But talk about some spice? Stormy Daniels in there, Michael Cohen in there, and it's all did Trump misuse federal election or whatever and these trials against Trump collectively, you're not going to see Trump in a courtroom for a while. I know you got used to it. I know some of you loved it. I guess CNN loved it. Ratings loved it. Some of these other cases we push back after November. And you know what's amazing about all these cases brought against Trump, other than lawyers getting rich off the defense and the prosecution. You know what's amazing about all of them is how quickly the DOJ was able to file charges against them, where they couldn't seem to decide what to do with Hillary on her email server, Hunter, and some of the others. But boy, they moved fast on Trump, didn't they? Boy, they lightning speed on Trump. And you know the funny thing, or the ironic, not funny, is at the end of the day, and I'm talking November, probably zero political consequence it will have on the election. All these trials. And the people that brought him, like the New York Attorney General and the DA, they all went after Trump because they hated him, they despised him. This would keep him from becoming president. What they didn't know is they probably helped him. They probably helped him in his election chances. Ironic. Hey, Google, Alexa, play The Pulse of an H. We're going to check in with the Seacoast next, right here.